Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. So, if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel over on Instagram, make sure you go ahead and come over to YouTube and give me a thumbs up and a subscription. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, happy Tuesday. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Let me know if you as you are coming into the room. If you would like to come over to YouTube and join the conversation, please do. First of all, let me start by telling you guys that this weekend I am going to be in Dallas, Texas on Friday and Saturday. I am going to be there for AmCon, the second amendment media workshop. I will be presenting. I'm very excited about that. I think it's going to be really great. Also, I am going to be doing a Instagram takeover for those 2 days for Gun Freedom Radio. So if you guys are not following them on Instagram, make sure you go ahead and give them a follow. They also have a YouTube channel. So you will be following me for the time I'm there and basically seeing the workshop and the conference from my perspective. Also, I will be at the Gun Rights Policy Conference on Saturday. So those are going to be happening Friday and Saturday. If you guys got some cool stuff that you know of that I could do during the time that I'm in Dallas, please let me know because I'll be there for a couple of days. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Hey to everybody coming in the room, Project 704. Hey, Mr. Pilu. Hey, India. Hey, Edward. So hopefully everyone is doing well. And tonight we're going to just go ahead and jump right into it. So if you don't know, as of now, 4.9 illegal immigrants have come across the border since the time that Joe Biden has been in office. And tonight we're going to just talk about that a little bit and what's been happening and some of the things that I believe to be happening, particularly the undermining of the Black American community. Also, you have the poor and the veterans that this is going to affect in large ways that people rarely, talk about. I know right now there's a big discussion going on about how this is impacting the cities, okay? And a lot of times when they're talking about the cities, you get these mayors or these governors to go on TV that live in these high rises, okay? Live in these in these gated communities, and they go on TV and they do these press conferences, and they act like they're so bothered by everything that's going on, and they go back at the end of the day to their beautiful, pleasant, peaceful homes, while this administration in ways and a lot of these mayors are causing chaos, okay? They are agents of chaos. They are causing chaos in these cities, allowing chaos. You have tons of people that are coming into the country a lot of times, and anybody could do crime. Like, don't get it twisted, okay? And we know that America is not some, stranger to that, okay? So I'm not going to try to pretend like, everyday Americans are just so moral and, oh my God, just never commit crime. No, that's not the case. But a lot of times, even when you have people coming into the country, sometimes who have extensive records, it's like you're almost supposed to be hush about it. Like, you're not even really supposed to mention it because, oh, that's not a thing and it has nothing to do with it. And that's going to also impact the quality of life of some of the people in these cities, especially just think about how emboldened some of these people can feel when the particular people that feel like, well, there's no record of me, the country, the government officials don't know I'm here, so I feel emboldened to do certain things. We know that there is a lot of drug trafficking and sex trafficking, okay? Human trafficking, which is actually slavery. Slavery still exists. So you have women and children that are being kidnapped, abducted, and even sold sometimes, people will try to use the children, of these desperate people that may be looking for opportunities, maybe looking for economic relief. And they'll say, oh, well, if you let your child come with me, we'll find them these great opportunities in America, or we'll use them as a anchor, right? To eventually send for the parents. And sometimes these girls, these children, these women are sold as sex slaves. It's actual human trafficking. These people have the power and the control and authority, over your body, as they are using you, and sometimes even for their labor, right? Not even necessarily sexual. Sometimes you have people being paid, I mean, literally nothing, because it's just so many human abuses that's happening. Like I'm saying, all this is a roundabout way to say that it's just so many human abuses that are happening at our border. Particularly, you have people feeling emboldened where they are feeling like they can't be accounted for. And with all of that being done, in a lot of ways, it's still the levels that it's been allowed to grow to under the Biden administration is naturally going to affect American citizens. But anyway, so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So, hey, to everyone just coming in the room, if you're new here, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscription button. Also, get this video a thumbs up so I can get out a little bit more. But so first of all, okay, let's talk about how the fact that the whole kids in cages discussion is one that has practically, I mean, virtually been removed altogether since Trump has left office. Now, even though numbers are exploding, so common sense will tell you that more people, because of the people coming through the border, you have more people being funneled through these systems. You have more backups in the process, right, of the documents and the paperwork and things like this that's happening. And so, this narrative that in the previous administration, oh, this is so evil and it's so cruel, but now all of a sudden it's a humanitarian crisis, right? So that's one angle that they've kind of tried to remove or skew the discussion. And during the Biden administration, in mainstream media, there really hasn't been a huge discussion around what's happening at the border. It's kind of somewhat been ignored if you're looking at it in comparison to during the Trump era. We could not get away from the conversation. We could not, like kids in cages and Black Lives Matter, I would say during those four years were like toe for toe, like neck and neck. You know what I mean? Those were the conversations that you couldn't get away from on social media. Everybody was talking about on your news every day. And so now you kind of seeing this coming back around as the border is literally exploding. You have so many people coming into the border, hundreds of thousands each month, and 4.9 million since Biden has gone into office. It's now become so outrageous that you have mayors and governors that can no longer ignore it. Okay. That's what I'm getting ready to show you guys now. And then we're going to talk about that.
The state of Texas, and they're abdicating the responsibilities that they agreed to get those monies. Those monies need to be reprogrammed and sent to states and cities like Chicago, like New York, like Washington, D.C. New York, to date, as of yesterday, had 11,000 people that have come to New York City. I mean, contemplate that number. And we need, DC needs more assistance. And obviously, I know that there's work being done by the White House and some of the executive agencies to look to other resources, that can't happen fast enough. So we're going to continue to be in conversation with them to let them know what is happening on the ground here. I had a series of very productive conversations when I was in DC on Friday, but we're not going to take our foot off the gas to say that we need a comprehensive plan from the federal government. And again, we all know what the reality is. This is a national problem. It needs a national solution. And we
This is a national problem. It needs a national solution. So this is Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who just told you to imagine 11,000 people coming into New York. 11,000 people. Do you know the media just went haywire over about 50 people going to Martha's Vineyard talking about how much of a political stunt it was, which I agree, by the way. It was obviously a political stunt. And we see tons of political stunts going into elections every time they come around. And this one is no different. Okay. However, she's sitting here telling you, just imagine this, like literally imagine 11,000 people coming into New York, right? Now compare that to the 50 people that went into Martha's Vineyard that caused this to be a news cycle for, I don't know, like a few days, at the least. Okay. So she's telling you right here, like, look, this is a national problem. And for what it seems to me, she's saying, look, give us the money. We'll see what we can do. You know what I'm saying? But the federal government is going to have to shell out some more money if we are going to be receiving, these immigrants coming into our city. And so now you have the DC mayor.
My phone was here. My phone was on the table. My phone was on the table before you guys said it was right here in the corner. And we're going to do all that we can in DC to make sure that people have a humane, local and transfer to their final destinations. But we see in the months ahead that this problem could worsen.
So she too calls this a national problem, right? And even saying, well, we'll help see them to their final destinations. So the final destination is not DC. So now this has been allowed to get so far along that you have these mayors that would typically, okay, some of them get on a campaign trail and talk about, oh, immigrants this and immigrants that, and asylums and sanctuary cities and all of these other things. But when it gets real and things start to hit the fan, this is when you start to see them sweat. This is when you start to see real takes. Anybody with common sense, I don't give a crap. Like you should be humane. You should be caring. You should be a decent person. Everyone should be that, right? However, you must know that if this is not being handled diligently, and you've had previous administrations talk about the problems with illegal immigration, ways we can fix this. This is not limited to Trump. You have had Obama, you've had Clinton, you've had Bush, okay, who have all talked about how the illegal immigration and not fully, securing our borders and this process needing to be fixed. And we've seen these things worsen over time to the point where now it's like you can only lie and hide for so long. When you got 11,000 immigrants showing up at the door of New York or New York City, something has to give. Something has to give. And, I do not think that it's fair that this has to fall simply on Texas, simply on California, Arizona, Florida. And some of them are trying to, oh, we're a sanctuary city, but now we're trying to allude to the fact, well, don't just leave this on us either. Now, the Biden administration. If we're being honest and breaking these concepts down as smoothly as possible, out of all the things that the federal government does, sticks their noses in, sticks their hands in pockets where they don't belong, all of the meddling that they do, everything that the government out of everything that the government is involved in, what they should be involved in, two of their main functions is supposed to be securing the border and protecting citizens from war. Okay. Many of the things that the government has been doing for the last several years is really actually supposed to fall on the states, okay? As the way that the government was allegedly, supposedly intended to work. We've gotten so far from this concept that even me saying this right now, it is people watching that are like, what? Like, what is she talking about? But the actual functionality of the federal government is supposed to be so limited that two of their main priorities is supposed to be securing the border and protecting the citizens from war. While this administration, and not even just this administration, but tons of administrations before, have been so focused on doing anything and everything else, this border problem has continued to grow. As I mentioned, some of the meddling that has happened, this also includes administrations that have had a hand in helping destabilize or affect or sanction or strong arm, however you want to see it or recognize, some of these countries where people are now fleeing from, right? And so all of these things, and these things are not happening. I mean, they're just not happening. And in some ways, I believe this to be absolutely 100% intentional. Okay. Decades before Trump took office, you had people, particularly like Dr. Claude Anderson, who has done years, decades of work talking about specifically how illegal immigration has undermined and been detrimental to the Black American community. Okay. Even beyond that, when you look at illegal immigration and how people that come into the country are able to work for low wages, right? Some of the jobs that veterans and economically disadvantaged people would, these jobs that would typically be, what would be considered like unskilled, what they call unskilled labor, um would be for this demographic, is now being undercut by people coming into the country. Now, whether you believe that to be true or not, it's really not my problem. I did content on this extensively. Okay, particularly we saw in a plant in Mississippi, as well as a plant that was, I believe, either in Chicago or Detroit. I can't remember exactly which one, but I've covered this in previous videos where I talked about how once these companies, these corporations were held accountable, how you would have, usually Black Americans that will be moved into these positions, and the companies will be forced to have better working positions, and it will also see increased pay. And so a lot of times, and I've also covered this extensively in the past as well, and I mentioned this a little earlier on in this video, is how you've had sometimes illegal immigrants be abused to a certain extent, because it's like, well, you're not gonna report us to OSHA or not HIPAA, OSHA, or any of these other agencies that would hold us accountable for these horrible working conditions. You don't really want people to know you're here and all these other things. But even how, Biden has addressed the relationship between Black Americans and I think he said Latin. I can't remember if he said Latin Americans or Mexican Americans. But anyway, we'll watch the clip here and we'll talk about it more.
Turn it over to Kamala, who says, what the hell am I doing with this guy right now? But all kidding aside, I've known you my whole life, most of you. I've worked with you my whole life, most of you. I've been around doing this for a long, long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do. And let me conclude in terms.
So, this clip went viral a while back when Joe Biden basically said that this country is doomed, and not just because of the blacks, but you know what I'm saying. But he was basically talking about how the demographics are changing. This whole America is gonna be European. What he said by 2040 is going to be a higher percent of Europeans. This is very similar to a scare tactic that they often do to almost scare Black Americans out of their best interests, right? To have us think irrationally, or to basically to skew what is actually going on, right? So to instead of address the demographics changing in a very honest, transparent way, you have this level of fear mongering, right? Like, if y'all don't get used to working with Hispanics and get on this racial equity agenda, then this country is doomed, and the whites are going to come take over, the Europeans. So this is something that we often see happen. I really, really wish that people would stop falling for this. I feel like Black Americans are the group that is the most piggybacked for others' issues, right? I am not saying that people cannot create alliances or have common interests, But nobody has been able to show me to this day, no one has been able to show me how illegal immigration helps Black Americans. There's no record of it. So to continue to, and that's just one example, but we've seen politicians do this where they try to, hitch one group to another. And I've yet to have anybody show me, whether economically, socially, any type of way, where that would make sense for Black Americans to generally take that up as a voting issue. It does not make sense. Even if we look at the demographics of California, I've talked about this several times in several instances where the Black population over the last 10 to 20 years has nearly been cut in half. Cut in half. California is becoming so expensive. The middle class is being driven out of California. California is being left for the very, very rich and the very, very poor. Okay, we see what is happening, and even when you look at, because people said America first was racist, that at least that's what I was told. That's the memo that I received. But I know when I look at actual statistics and data, it says that 40% of the homeless, 40% of the homeless are Black Americans. 40%. 40% of the homeless, even though we are 13% of the population and dwindling, even as you just saw Joe Biden say there, that the demographic of Black Americans is decreasing and Hispanics are quickly outpacing us. And like Dr. Clyde Anderson has notably said, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, I don't know what the heck you think you're going to get when you at number 4. And so nobody has been able to show me on record when it comes to actual voting issues why Black Americans should take up this mantle. It just logistically, like I just have not seen where it makes sense. Neither have I seen any country across the world where I can just drop my luggage off at the front door and people saying, come on in. There have been people crossing the border who have said during interviews how they are being told, you can say propagandized, whatever, word you may want to use here, but basically being led to believe that, oh, if you come to America, you will get these additional benefits, and it's basically just a free-for-all. And you can see it in the numbers. You can see it in the numbers. The numbers have exponentially increased of border crossings between Trump's and Biden's administration. That's just common sense. And so I'm sitting here trying to connect the dots of how this makes sense for everyday middle Americans. Like how does that benefit us? And unfortunately, one thing that I really don't see anybody talking about in a real way is actually fixing the process where it's quicker, where it's smoother, where you can get people through the process much better. I've yet to see that there were whisperings during the Trump administration about e-verify and making that a federal program where it would be harder, or you would basically have to um you know, verify that these are in fact citizens before being able to employ them. Now, even that could have its own issues because you could still pay people under the border. And then you may have some people that may argue, oh, well, this is not something that the federal government should implement. This should be a state to state issue. And on some levels of that, I do agree. However, I think that there needs to be solutions that make sense, because all we've seen is passing a buck, waves and rifts of the illegal immigration problem. And you can't fault me for calling it a problem when we literally sit here and watch the mayor of DC say, nah, I ain't gonna lie, like at this point, this is a problem. Not just even like a problem, like a national problem. And then Lori Lightfoot goes on to say, like, nah, like we legit need a little bit more support from the federal government because this is not working. And if we're gonna keep taking in this many immigrants, y'all gotta send them Fed dollars. Like, what's up? You know? And even Eric Mayer Adams, that I did not show tonight, but even he has gone on the record recently saying, like, look, like this is a national problem. We're going to need a little bit of everybody to help with this. I happen to think that the higher burden should sway the way of the people that are constantly, offering these flowery words that if people just come across the border, we're just going to take you in and get these benefits. And so, if anything, the failures lie with the politicians. Just anger lies with the politicians. You'll have some people that'll try to pretend that it's just the immigrants' fault. It's just, oh my God, they're just lawbreakers. When every instance of human nature says, not only if you telling me I'm going to get all these benefits, these roundabout ways to basically say you are willing to undermine citizens for non-citizens. It's the politicians that have failed us time and time again, from the policies that undermine these countries to make people want to come here in the first place. And they're dibbling and dabbling, dipping and dabbing, you know. And then to go on to make these, I don't even know the word that I'm looking for right now, but basically go on to undermine citizens in ways that hurts, to undermine citizens in ways that sometimes, because even look at Stacey Abrams right now, right? Recently I've seen this a lot in my Twitter sphere, but this has been on the news and they've been talking about it, how Stacey Abrams is looking to have a problem with Black male voters, and it's looking already like they are setting up the media and they're setting up the narrative to be that if Stacey Abrams loses, oh, well, it was the Black men's fault. When really Black men are asking, what are we benefiting from this? Like, what are we actually gaining from this? And then not only that, you have the nerve to almost undermine us, with the benefits, or this is what we're going to do for illegal immigrants. And it's like, look, like we're citizens. We have, unfortunately, some of the highest, and talking about Black men, some of the highest murder rates, some of the highest unemployment rates, pretty high, but not the highest, suicide rates, homeless rates, right? All of these things to be considered. And any politician, I mean, at least most of them, to have the nerve to go on and make these concessions for non-citizens is it's a blow to anybody's intelligence. It's a blow to logic in a time where the economy is suffering, not on track. You have so many people that are struggling. You have the nerve to talk about a homeless crisis, a shelter crisis. We don't have enough homes, the prices of homes, but then to almost some ways favor people that really you have no legal, or I'll say legal. I don't know about moral. I'll have to think a little bit more on that because of some of the things that these people have actually done in relates to global or federal policy, but no actual legal standing, or no legal authority to non-citizens. Just it just doesn't exist. And so this is now what we see happening. And as a result of this, you actively have people now fighting over resources.
To talk about new developments in the ongoing migrant influx here in the city, trying to find room for them, causing tension within the city shelter system. News 4 Government Affairs reporter Melissa Russo has the new details.
With the city struggling to house thousands of new migrants, we've learned that tensions at some city homeless shelters are at a new high. Fights are breaking out, and in some cases, we're told the resentment is palpable. This brawl happened inside a Brooklyn shelter for families Thursday night. Residents tell the I-Team tensions boiled over between local homeless and newly arrived migrants. Police responded, and today some migrant families moved out of the shelter and into a local church because they simply did not feel safe. We've heard similar stories from several shelters.
Migrants are getting beat on, the police is being called.
Some nonprofit shelter operators tell the I-Team a major cause of the resentment is that the city is now moving people around from shelter to shelter to make room for migrants.
Why are we being displaced for them when we was already reasonable accommodated here? Why are we being moved around, shuffled around?
This resident, who asked us not to use her name, says she was suddenly forced to vacate the Queen's shelter where she'd been living for almost a year and where she received special accommodations for a disability.
I'm on 5 different kind of medications, and I can't take my medicine without eating. So I haven't eaten in about 3 days.
But in her new shelter, she says she has no refrigerator and is not allowed to keep food in her room.
Yeah, this is my leftovers. This is what I have to put my food in.
Because
we can only allow to bring in 1 plate of food at a time.
We have been speaking with a lot of people who are facing sudden transfers and sudden moves because the city is moving people around with no notice, moving people around without taking their reasonable accommodations into consideration.
Some advocates for the homeless want the city to open new facilities for migrants and let everyone else stay put. To be clear, right now the migrants are also being forced to move around. The city hopes its plans to build relief centers strictly to help with intake and services for migrants will help. After speaking with some shelter residents earlier this afternoon about this, we reached out to the city for a comment, but so far we've not heard back.
So you are now having brawls in homeless shelters. You're now having brawls in homeless shelters between this particular woman was, a Black American. And like I said, 40% of the homeless are Black Americans. And now you're having brawls between actual citizens, homeless citizens. A lot of times these people are veterans, they're obviously economically disadvantaged, and sometimes even dealing with mental health issues. And I don't know if you guys have worked with the homeless, but a lot of times even getting homeless people to feel comfortable in a shelter is one thing, right? And so to go on to displace them, and not even that, but displace them for people that aren't even citizens, like, what exactly are you saying? And this is what I mean when I say these government officials are agents of chaos, because it's the people at the bottom fighting over scraps. And then they'll sit here and pretend that they're so humane and they're so just. But you literally have some of the most poor, disadvantaged people that you are causing and allowing this chaos to go on instead of coming up with solid solutions, right? There is no one as of yet that has actually tried to, well, Trump in some ways, and people may argue about whether the wall would have worked in this, then the other. But other than that, a actual system where you can have, immigrants that are trying to come into the country the right way, and filtering those in a safe way, and one that doesn't take forever, right? And also making sure that, yes, when you have people that are fleeing, persecution and all these other things, having, a number or a system for that works as well. But what we're seeing now is not working. It's not working. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. And now you literally have even the mayors of sanctuary cities saying it out of their own mouths, because it is imploding. That is how bad it's getting. When the people that are over these sanctuary cities saying, hold up now, like, y'all getting a little out of hand, this is becoming too much. It's funny to me that the people that don't tend to care about these issues, or I would say want to use their feelings to trump the logistics of these issues, are not the people that are fighting over scraps. They're not the people that are the business owners, where so many homeless people are having to set up shelters and camps, miles spanning across the streets, right? And in some ways, even affecting tourism of these certain cities and things like this. And so it 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 has to be fixed. Something has to happen. If not, it's going to worsen. It's laughable to me that there are whispers of is it Newsom? Is that the name I'm trying to think of? From California running for president, and look at what's happening in some of the places in Los Angeles, with what is happening with the, and look, I mentioned Mississippi. Because I said, look, Mississippi been in the news for all the wrong things recently. Like, it's embarrassing. So I'm not gonna sit here and try to pretend like, all of these governors, these cities, these states don't have their own issues. But at the same time, you also don't see me saying Tate Reeves should run for president either. You know what I mean? And so Governor Newsom. So to for the things that we see happening in California, and for people to think that this is a viable candidate for president, I just find very laughable. And every time I talk to somebody actually in California, it's people saying like, "Oh my goodness, like this guy's the worst." And then it's like the people outside of California view it totally different. I just don't know what that thing is there. Um, but you know, this border issue combined with the homelessness, the imploding homeless crisis, okay, combined with the sex trafficking that is not nearly talked about enough. I mean, some sickening things happening at the border. You have some parents that will never see their children again, that are just disappearing into the United States, and it's saddening, it's maddening, it's sickening that it's not talked about enough. And even that, some of us theorize, when we still don't have a Jeff Epstein's client list, okay? Even though, we've seen Ghislaine Maxwell held responsible for this and nobody else. And we know, please don't try to pretend or wish away what we can clearly see with our own eyes, thinking that it makes you more humane or progressive. It doesn't. And it's okay to admit that some of the things that are going on are not right. It's not adding up, and it's a reason why these things are not being talked about the way they should. But like I said, when you have the border crisis being combined with the homelessness, the sex trafficking, and the drug trafficking, you're going to, you're going to continue to unfortunately see chaos in these cities. But maybe, just maybe, if more of these uh mayors come out of these sanctuary cities saying, "Hey, look, like this is not what's up. We can't do this. We can't handle the influx," then maybe, just maybe, we'll see the federal government stepping in a little bit more at this border. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's absolutely 100% a political stunt. But that none of these politicians are strangers to political stunts as the elections come up. We recently saw with Joe Biden saying that he would be basically deleting student debt, and I think the administration is possibly now being sued. I thought, my hypothesis was that the suing of this administration would come after the midterms, because it's like, oh, we gotta hurry up and do this, because we can really motivate people to vote if we address the student loan issue. And so that is something that some people are saying probably won't even work. And it's something, the student loan thing is something that I'm still looking into and researching and seeing how they're trying to do this and how that would work with, I mean, because it seems as if they're almost trying to do it unilaterally. And so, but anyway, not trying to change the subject into that. Thank you so much, AKW Beats, for the $5 super chat. And so we will see what happens. Things are really heating up before midterms. I think we have a little over a month and a half left or so. And so we'll see what tricks they pull out of bag next. But things are really heating up, and yeah, we'll see what happens with this issue. We'll see if people even care or talk about it after midterms. But thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you are not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscription button for me. Make sure that you are following me over on Twitter. I am RhondaMary. On Instagram, RhondaMary Vids, Rhonda_Mary. And if you are a lady and need help with your concealing, wanting to carry your firearm every day and not knowing where to start, or just wanting to jazz up your style a little bit, feeling like you're wearing too much jeans and t-shirts and you want to see how to mix it up with different styles while concealing your firearm every day, go over to RhondaMary.com and I have the perfect solution for you where I break down every way and technique that I use as an option that you can use to carry. I do all the heavy lifting for you. All you have to do is figure out, look, see which one works best with your style, and go right to the website and buy the products. So that is on RhondaMary.com. Go ahead and check that out. And all right, y'all, we will be talking soon. Hey, Justin. All right, bye.